is today's topic is focused on the reaction to the announcement of San Diego County reopening their schools on Monday. I am Dr. Roxanne Kimani. I will be your moderator for today's topic. For those of you who may be new to RISE, we are an organization that focuses on the urban community around issues specifically related to leadership development and civic engagement. We support nonprofits and for-profits in their development. And then we have these types of events trying to bring real information to the community by the community with topics that focus on things such as COVID-19, social justice, anti-racism strategies, as well as other topics that support all of you in your learning journey. During this webinar, a couple of housekeeping rules. During this webinar, all attendees are going to be muted. We do, however, want you to engage in our dialogue, in our conversation, using the chat box and the Q&A box. If you have a comment about what you are hearing, please share it in the chat. If you have a question that you would like to ask the panelists, please use the Q&A box and I'll be sure to engage that question to our panelists. We have a great panel lined up of people here for you today who will share their experience and insight on the upcoming school reopening initiative. Our panelists include Brandon Harrison, Associate Pastor of Rock Church, Point Loma, also a RISE alumni Gen 1. In his past, Brandon has worked for the Institute of Elementary Sciences, formerly the Children's Pastor at Faith Chapel. He also focuses his passion on education and seeing people grow spiritually. Brandon and his wife Starlet have been married for 11 years and they have 2 sons and 1 daughter that I'm assuming will more than likely be going to school on Monday. Jorge, please help me with your last name. Narvaez? Went from a teen father to meeting former President of the United States, Barack Obama. For the past couple of years, Jorge has been active both on and offline in spreading his message of family, community, art, music, and most importantly, fatherhood. Jorge has been featured on dozens of panels, presentations, and keynotes across the country, as well as with YouTube CEO, Susan, with another last name that I can't pronounce, performed on The Ellen Show with his daughter, Alexa. Jorge is also a first-generation graduate of high school and college and has earned a degree from the University of California, San Diego with a focus in ethnic studies. Cydia Brewer is a dedicated educator with the San Diego Unified School District, committed to the advocacy and support of our students with the knowledge, expertise, and experiences with anti-bias, anti-racism, culturally responsive teaching practices, student voice and agency, trauma-informed learning, and restorative justice practices. She has spent the last year training teachers and staff around equity and anti-bias, anti-racism practices through the Department of Youth Advocacy. It is currently serving as the vice principal for Roosevelt Middle School. Cydia is also a single mother to her 2 middle-aged school children, both 6th grade and 8th grade, who have been engaged in distance learning through this last year. And she is also a RISE alum from Gen 4. We also have Melissa Mendez, who is a high school senior at Bruce School, UCSD. She is a first-generation American and first-generation college student with a dream of attending a 4-year university this fall to major in biophysics. She is an avid student and has taken advantage of the academic resources in her school and community to help enrich her academically. Currently, she holds a 4.3 GPA and is the senior class treasurer at her school and is a member of the National Honor Society Club. She is also a member of Reality Changers, where she participates in college readiness enrichment programs and community service events. So as you can see, y'all, we have a powerful panel right now, so I'm very excited to get started. I want to first begin with a poll question to get a sense of where our audience is. Give us a moment. How comfortable are you sending your kids back to school this spring? For those of you joining us on Zoom, you'll be able to fill out the community survey. For those of you on Facebook, just give us a sense in your own conversations at home where you might be. And unfortunately, panelists, you won't be able to join, but you'll be able to participate through the conversation. Okay, let's get a sense of where we're at with our survey. Slightly uncomfortable and very uncomfortable and neutral are the heavy hitters for this. So my first question to the three parents on the panel, are you going to be sending your kids back to school on Monday? Brandon, I'll start with you.
We are not. So we have a 10-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 2-year-old, and they go to O'Farrell Elementary. And we asked them first what they wanted to do. And our oldest is a little more rule follower, good with the technology. He's been enjoying distance learning. He said he didn't want to actually. Our middle son, our 6-year-old, our first grader, said he wanted to. He's a lot more social. But the school, thankfully, they're requiring the kids to wear masks all day, which is great. But they did some practice runs, and our 6-year-old just kept it on for 2 minutes on Zoom. It was cute to watch him try, but we're just like, we know our boys. They don't wash their hands well enough. They're not going to keep a mask on for 6 hours. So we decided to keep them at home until the fall. They gave options for 2 days in person and 3 days at home, and we just decided to keep our kids at home for now.
Okay, Cydia and Jorge.
We are going with yes. Originally, I wasn't quite so sure. I did speak with my kid's father, and he was on board with sending them, which kind of surprised me, and so made me kind of double think things. And then I started this job fairly recently at Roosevelt, and we started welcoming students in phase one. And I was very nervous, and I wasn't sure how our students would be and feel. But seeing the change and their just energy and their happiness and just their anxiety when they first came onto campus, and then just how like relieved and excited and happy they became over like the course of the few weeks that we were with them, it really had me reconsidering for my kids. And we've been really kind of struggling at home. And I know my kids are struggling with the loneliness piece. And so they're 6th grader and an 8th grader. They're not too excited about it. They kind of liked, doing school in their PJs and literally in bed. But we're getting there with them, and knowing how careful and all of the work that's happening on the school side, for making sure that everybody's safe. I'm feeling pretty confident that it'll be okay. But of course, we're nervous.
So the quick answer is for me, no, not yet. But I feel the same way as Syria. Is that how you pronounce your name? I'm sorry.
Cydia.
Syria. And because there's obviously as a parent, I have to think about the circumstances and figure out, okay, what's the best for my child. I did a lot of things were revealed to me during this time. Number one, I realized that my children's my daughters, they learn differently, and I watched them and I witnessed them absorbing education a little differently. I wasn't too happy about some of it, but I mean, again, my kids love the idea of just using the restroom whenever they want. They love that. They love turning off their camera when they want to. So there's a sense of ownership, right? That I discovered. They're like, okay, I have this ability to still do really good in school, have my grades, and do good in school, but and also have that ability of navigating the home, right? Feeling safe and feeling at home. So I'm curious to learn more about what I have to do as a father to make sure that they are comfortable with this transition, because it is let's be real, this is a transition. The transition at the beginning of the year of last year was insane. Okay, it was very, very scary, but also revealing, like I said. So I'm just waiting to see what I have to do as a father And both my wife and I have been just, okay, when is it going to be the right yes?
And how old are yours children, Jorge?
So my oldest is 16. I have a 12-year-old and I have a 3-year-old. The 3-year-old is the one that's like, he's taking it all. I mean, poor kid, got his daughter, his sisters all over there studying, and he's just kind of like wandering, and like, daycare is a question mark too as well. So I don't know yet. I don't know what to expect yet, but I'm definitely looking forward for an answer.
So it sounds like we have a good range of ages represented here. Melissa, how do you feel about going back to school?
Yeah, so my particular high school is actually not going back to school yet. But however, if I did have the choice to go back or to continue with remote learning, personally, I would choose to stay and continue with remote learning. Throughout this past year, it's been difficult and has come with its challenges, but I feel like I was able to accommodate myself, and I'm confident that I will be able to finish the school year strong if I continue with remote learning.
Okay, speaking about the remote learning, and I keep it with you, Melissa, and to the parents, for you as a student, can you speak a bit about the complexity of what you were used to being in the classroom with your teachers there and learning collectively to switching into a learning management system online?
Yeah, so when I first started remote learning, it was just completely different. I mean, everything was virtual and it was challenging. And it did take a long time to get used to, and I can't say that I'm completely used to it yet. Um, I think the biggest challenge that I had was since had so much time on my hands now that with remote learning, it was difficult to time manage, and I found myself kind of procrastinating a lot. And it was definitely a big difference because I used to go to school up in La Jolla. So I used to have to ride the bus for about 4 hours a day. So I would come home around 6:30 to do my homework, and it was definitely challenging. And then switching to remote learning, where I was home all day, was definitely a big relief, I feel, for myself personally, because like I said, I had more time to organize myself, more time to do my assignments, and even just relax. But it definitely was challenging.
Okay, and then to our parents, how has it been like you navigating the complexity of the learning management systems? And I'd imagine even for you, Cydia, being the vice principal too, that adds a whole other layer to the workload.
Um, yeah, so I feel like I kind of have to laugh about it because it's been so just crazy. So for the majority of this time, I was actually not in this position. I was still working with the Department of Youth Advocacy and doing a lot of professional development for teachers and staff in this space right here, while my kids were like surrounding me. And so that was it was hard, like, it just helping them kind of manage what they're doing at the same time appreciating the ability for them to have agency over their own learning and be able to manage it themselves without me like all up in their business all the time because I couldn't. And then when I did transition into this job, I actually have a Instagram post on this of like this. I didn't check their power school for like 3 weeks because I was up in their business. I had to be because their grades were, and then I didn't check for like 3 weeks and like they all fell. And I was like, you all, like, I need you to step up without me constantly telling you what assignments to do. So now I think we were finally gotten to this space where they're managing themselves, and now we're kind of going back. I wish that there was a happy medium. I wish there was both. I feel like, like Melissa was saying, like some of us and sometimes thrive in this like online, on our own space. I know I do. And then sometimes we need that instruction and that person. It's just like, it would be great if we had a little bit of both and it didn't have to be all or nothing. So I do like this 4-to-1 right now. I think it could be even like more, just half and half. But that's like a whole change in our educational system. So it's been tough, but very, I don't know. I'm happy to be able to pass the baton back to some teachers here.
Brandon and then Jorge.
It's been very tough. Jorge said it perfectly. I saw the different learning styles of my kids. So when the pandemic started, my kids were in kindergarten and fourth grade, so 5 and 9 years old, and it was hard. It was a shock. Their school handled it really well, but as I said, my older son, he's a little more rule follower and can, like you said, Melissa, just kind of structure his own day a little better. But we still stayed on him. But our 5 year old, I mean, seeing 25 5 year olds on Zoom, I was just like, this teacher is amazing. It was so hard. And like you were saying, like they can turn off videos. The 5 year olds learn how to jump in the chat and just make noise. And it was a lot. And it was stressing our 5 year old out. And like you said, Cydia, my wife and I, we could not sit there all day with him. We had other work to do. And it was very frustrating. It was a very tense time in our home. That March through June of last year, it was very difficult, readjusting and trying to figure it out. The school got a lot better structure. They were spending a lot of time on Zoom at the beginning. Then we came back in August, the teachers had figured out a little bit better. And it was no fault of their own because it was just a knee-jerk reaction. So August, it was a little better structure for both of them, but still our first graders struggling with it, and it's been really difficult for them. And just like you said, CD, we're getting constant emails from the teachers saying, "Hey, Micah is not paying attention. He's not turning this in." And the amount of emails that my wife and I are getting, and the amount of apps we had to download and websites to check, it's been a lot on top of working and trying to internet connections dropping sometimes. And just, we have a 2 year old, we're potty training. So like you said, Jorge, just she's running around in their room with her diaper in the behind. So it's been comedy, it's been stressful, it's been confusing, but the teachers and the principal have done incredible job. They've done really well. But it's, I mean, like I have a fifth grader and a first grader, so they're adjusting, and my wife and we're still holding on. It's been a journey though.
I think so. I don't want to, I definitely don't want to downplay what has been going on these past couple of months, right? I mean, what the severity of what's been going on around our communities, especially some of the more under-resourced communities, right? That really don't have the bigger homes, right? That are forced to kind of be in this remote learning space with a 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and then maybe more than one person living in the house. That's where I'm like, when this all started happening, and I was already overwhelmed and I was stressed out and I was trying to figure out, okay, what is the right thing to do? I thought about like a dozen of my friends, a dozen of my teachers as well, who were 10 times worse in the worst situation. And so I thought to myself, okay, those are the communities, those are the people that are being hit hard by this, right? Those of us that needed our kids to be in school, right? Because of the amount of work that some of these parents, I mean, whether you're co-parenting like Cedia does, right, or whether you're married, there's parents that both work. And so if you can imagine, like, these two parents be going to work together, right, or working remotely, and then everyone else is studying at the same time, you got a child running around. And I'm just saying from my own experience, and also hearing from my other brothers and sisters, right, that are going through all this. That's what I'm thinking. Like, I'm talking about like mental health in general, the mental health component that happened with all this. So yes, open the schools, right? Of course. However, there's also another transition happening for those kids and those families who actually adjusted pretty well to this type of scenario. For those kids who have bullies at school, for those kids who have really bad teachers who can't really teach well. Some teachers even enjoy the remote learning as well. So in my head, I'm thinking, okay, sounds to me like the world is going to really start transitioning towards this more like hybrid learning for at least for another couple of months. Here, in my job, um, I also I have a lot in common with Cydia. I started professional development, working for a fatherhood program. Training. I learned a lot about communication. I learned a lot about what's been going on domestic violence. I learned that these past couple of months, there's a spike in domestic violence, a spike in murders, a spike in family altercations. And the reason why I know that is because I'm part of a meeting where I meet with all the officers in San Diego, and they tell us this is what's going on. This is what's happening. There's a lot of grief. There's a lot of ghost guns out there right now, and all these things that are happening. I'm like thinking, dang, like mental health. So yes, open the schools, but I mean, it's going to be a transition for some families. And no, keep it optional, because some families might not be able to afford these long travels to La Jolla, might not be able to get this access as other students have. So a part of me thinks about the classist perspective, right? Where there's affluent communities that have the easiness of navigating their neighborhoods to go to school, and then there's the under-resourced communities like here in Southeast San Diego, who have parents and teachers who are concerned about their health, who might not have that the ability, who are more fragile to COVID, right? Um, Again, I'm not trying to downplay COVID. I mean, I have friends of mine who died from COVID. I have my mom got COVID, my brother got COVID. They got really sick, and my wife is a caregiver. She got her vaccination. So, I mean, and we all have to be careful. So, I think that's what's been more revealing to me is like how much perseverance some of us parents have had to add on to this pandemic, to what's been going on. So I am conflicted. I am conflicted with what's going on, but I'm hoping that San Diego really opens their eyes, especially because whether you're conservative or liberal or whatever the heck is going on with this, like, this political conversation, and really put into work what we have to do as a community. Because man, these kids are being put through so much already. These kids have been put through a lot of trauma. I mean, I go to the park, okay, and I'm gonna digress on this, but I go to the park and I see children who don't even know how to play with each other because they forgot, and I have to go in there and intervene and like be a kid again, and then kind of cause a domino effect to have other kids play. So there's a huge mental health component to what's happening, and I think whatever happens with opening or reopening or closing the schools, I really hope that the principals, and I really hope that mental health practitioners, and also even the nonprofit organizations that are going to be working with these schools, are aware of the importance of getting involved, getting access to some of these dads that don't have support, some of these moms that don't have any mental health support, because that's what's going to happen. That's what's happening right now. A lot of these parents are losing their minds, and these teachers are trying to figure out how to teach. So
Can I add on to that a little bit? So with what Jorge, you struck a chord with me as well. There's been so many times where I'm like, I've grown up in this system. My mom's a teacher. My whole family's a teacher. I know I started teaching when I was way too young. I know the system in and out, and I'm struggling this hard. I can't keep up with it. I can't keep my kids on task. I don't know what email it was or what app to do or this or that or the other. And I'm going crazy with the noise, and I'm going, and kids are failing, and all I can think about, and now in my role as a vice principal at my school, is just like, if it was this hard for me, I can't even begin to imagine how hard it's been for folks who don't know the system like I do. And that's not okay. Like, it shouldn't be this hard. And yes, the focus does have to be on mental health and getting through this long-term trauma together, to heal as a community, to heal together, to find our resources together, to be able to try to meet all of these needs that we are missing right now. I don't have all the answers. I don't know what's the right answer, to go back or not. But I just know that me being back, and for my students and for my families, I'm going to be there to take care of them and talk to them as best as I can, and know that I've been put through the ringer just as well. And we're all going to come back and try to get through this next step together again as well.
Well, and there's something else in addition to what both of you said too, that it isn't just about going back, because it's not going back to what it used to be. Kids are going to be arriving in schools that are much, much different than what they know. And so I'm curious, what have the schools provided to you as parents? Melissa, as you as a student, what has the school provided to you to help alleviate any of the fears that you might have? What are the resources that are being provided? What are the safety precautions? And does that satisfy the fear that you may have? Even recognizing, Brennan, for you, that you're still not sending your kids back to school, but what have they provided for you?
So, like you were saying, Jorge, I live in Southeast, and our kids go to O'Farrell, and they've done a great job of providing. They've done quite a few Zooms actually with parents along this whole process. Starting in about September, they started doing parent Zooms just to update us on the new air circulation systems they're getting in, the hand sanitation systems that they'll have throughout the school. They've done, I think, 2 or 3 parent surveys, same one you just put up, just to check as far as our comfort levels of sending our kids back. But I think O'Farrell has done an incredible job of getting us moving forward towards reopening. They provided the staff and faculty with vaccines, and they've made sure that it was not rushed. And so they've definitely comforted us a lot. And they, like I said, they've done awesome with our first grader, done these probably the last 3 weeks, like practice days of wearing your mask, and all right, let's go wash our hands, and all right, let's make sure that we're not touching our eyes. And they've really coached the kids throughout this time, and even our fifth grader as well. But we just know our kids, and we're like, we're gonna wait throughout the summer, and we feel that we can spend a little more time. 'Cause like you said, Cydia and Jorge, it's been very stressful for us. And like you said, I worked in elementary education for 10 years, and my mom is currently an elementary band and orchestra teacher in San Diego. She's been teaching on Zoom, and she's in her 60s, having to learn it. So I've seen the teacher side, the parent side, my 3 kids. My wife is a preschool teacher. So we've seen it from every angle. Like you said, Jorge, it's so complex. It's it's not either or, like, all right, just send them back, or one day here. And like you said, transportation issues. And it's been stressful, but the school has done an awesome job of communicating weekly with us. The principal, vice principal, teachers have done excellent communication and making us feel comfortable that they're not just sending the kids back, but they have a solid plan. But we've just decided to wait a little bit longer until we feel comfortable in the spring, in the fall.
I just digress to thinking about what preschool must be like on Zoom. So your wife is a very brave woman.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and I just want to add on to what Brandon was saying. Being a student is definitely very draining, and it's very tough because just sitting in front of a screen for a long time, attention span is difficult to have. It is a challenge, but I feel like my school, since we aren't going back in person, they have provided a lot of resources for the students. We have a bookmobile that comes, I believe, twice a month that provides books, but also has resources for students such as food, or if they need counseling services or they need to reach out to someone on school for help, they always have that readily available. And if we're not able to make it out to the bookmobile, we can always reach out to the school, shooting them an email. I've done that a couple of times and I've always received a response. It's definitely very reassuring to know that I'm not in it alone. I know that there's a lot of my peers have helped me through it because, as some of you were mentioning earlier, it's just mental health, so feeling lonely at times, but knowing that you can always fall back on your peers or on the school itself is very reassuring. So, yeah.
If I could add to that, Melissa, thank you so much for sharing. I was curious about your thoughts as well, because I know you're a high school student, and I mean, without sharing anything personal, right? I mean, I can imagine, there's friends you might have, right, that could have parents that they're not the best parents, right? And I mean, parents aren't perfect, and I hear this a lot. I hear that some of my, for example, some of my daughter's friends, right? They you can hear them argue, and teachers can hear them argue, and then and then doesn't I mean, again, going back to mental health, you know, and one thing I would love to see schools more than ever do moving forward now is implementing some sort of communication course for parents, that I mean, there's so many moments, and I'm going to go back to some of the conversations I had with the homicide teams and the police officers. Is there's so many moments that could have been easily de-escalated if there was a better way of communicating between mom and dad, between child and children, and child and father, child and mother, co-parents as well. Most importantly, co-parents. Like, I can't imagine what it's like co-parenting right now. Especially the back and forth. I went through it myself. with my wife when we before we got back together, and I can't imagine what it's like now, you know. So it would be amazing, right, to be able to, because that's one thing I learned myself when I was going through all this. I realized I wasn't even a good listener. I wasn't even listening to my kids' needs. I wasn't understanding that they were also traumatized by this. I wasn't understanding that this is a huge cultural shock to them, and I didn't take into consideration on my daily life and how that it's affecting them. So I just would, that's one thing I would love to hear is like, what are these schools, what are all these schools where, I mean, I know some of the schools have different fundings, but I would love to hear schools say, hey, you know what, let's find a better way to have these parents communicate with us, with each other better. I mean, it's just something that I'm just, it's very sad to see happening more and more and more. And it's happening to everybody, you know, it doesn't matter what you believe in. It's like people can believe in these conspiracies, or people can believe this is fake or real, or it doesn't matter. We're living all of it at the same time right now. So again, this is something that I really care about and I get really passionate about because I've seen it. I've seen what it did to my kids. You know, I've seen what it did to me, both positive and negative.
Um, my biggest concern for my kids right now in terms of safety, I think, is their social emotional safety. I feel like I feel like schools are doing a great job and they're really trying hard and communicating, and I know what I'm trying to do, what we're trying to do. But also thinking it from the parent perspective. I am worried that there's going to be too much of a hyper focus on catching up on the academics piece. I think the kids will be fine if we let them adjust and if we're focused on them as human beings, and the trauma, like you said, and how difficult this was, how traumatic it was to just end everything. I was in a classroom today or yesterday and like brought tears to my eyes looking at all of the work that was just abandoned last spring, like these mid projects. And you know, the teacher was like, I can't believe this. I'm like, oh, this is weird, it's like a time capsule. And another thing that I'm working on is I sent like a student inventory to all of our students to just check in, how are you feeling, and to be able to share that with their teachers so their teachers can see when they come to their class, this is what your students feel and think about this transition. But that's the focus that I'm having here, where I'm going, or you know, where I'm at, and I don't see that where my children are, and that really worries me. And I worry that there is just going to be too much of a push for the academics to get those grades. And while yes, grades are very important, and I want my kids to get good grades, they're going to be fine. I want to make sure that they're okay emotionally, and that their mental health is addressed first. So I think that's my biggest concern. And I don't know, I think it varies across across schools and what their focus is. And so yeah, I hope that we can all take a step back and just remember the humanity of our children and everything that they've been through in this last year, and that they just need our love right now, and they need to feel safe either at home or at school, but that they will be taken care of regardless of how great their reading is or math is or whatever, because they're just little babies. They're babies right now. We need to take care of them.
Yeah. I just want to jump on that. I'm glad you said that, City. That comforts me a lot to hear from a vice principal, because it's so important that we don't forget these kids' humanity, and us as parents, like you said, and the teachers, the principals. Like, I have made it a point every Monday to send my kid's teacher just an encouraging email, to encourage the principal. Every time she sends it up to, I say, thank you, you're doing great leading us through this, to recognize their humanity. Because before, when I dropped my kids off, I would kind of speak and say hi and bye, just get to work. But I've really taken this time to recognize the humanity in each person's role, because like you said, Jorge, we're all going through this and it's not easy for any of us. And it's something that it really, like you, I'm passionate about this. So I was so honored to get to be on this panel, because it's been a lot this year. And so March, 15th, our kids' school shut down. And then my dad passed away March 28th of last year at 64. It was sudden. And then my grandpa passed away in May. And my kids were dealing with the grief too. And trying to get school figured out. And when you said, Jorge, it really hit me because there were days I was grieving. I was trying to process my new work schedule, my kids at home doing distance learning. And my kids were, like you were saying, City, they were just crying. Like, I can't figure out the app. It keeps shutting down. I can't write on my tablet. And they were crying. And it was emotional time where I was like, their grades are not more important than their mental health. I need to sit down with my son. He's 5 years old. He's 9 years old at the time, and see, how are you doing? And just sit down and read with them, work on their writing. And like you said, City, I know once they get back in person, they'll be fine. They'll catch up. The academics will come. But that moment, I think it was maybe May or June of last year when both the deaths happened and then the distance learning. I was just like, okay, my children are not robots. And I know that because I'm dealing with all this stress and it's heavy. And my wife and I, we had to have one of those deep talks with our kids and say, we love you. It, like you said, the work was piling up, the apps, the notifications, the emails were like, ah, but our kids were struggling mentally and we saw it. And we're like, we got to slow down. And once schools open back up and work is going full force, we'll never get this year again that we had at home with our kids, getting to do the work with them, even though it wasn't easy. But what you said is perfect. I really do not want to forget the humanity in my children, myself, the teachers, the principals. Each of us are going through this together, and I never want to not acknowledge that.
Jorge, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I'm Brandon. I love what you shared, man. We need to feel, we need to feel what we're going through. I think that's the most important thing. Again, when all this started happening and I started noticing even myself, okay, I'm guilty of this. I spent hours and much more hours on social media and my devices. I mean, ironically, my other job, I'm a content creator. I do YouTube videos of my family, stuff like that. So I kind of have to be on it. But even these past couple of months, man, I kept away because I know that the market right now is pumping billions of dollars into kind of like remote stuff in social media and devices, right? To keep us kind of busy and also not killing each other basically as well, because this is all insane. I mean, being inside a box, it's like, it's a cabin fever kind of experience. So, what is it called? I think I just lost my train of thought. I'll get back to it. Grief. So I feel like that's another thing we haven't addressed. It's like our children are are so busy on TikTok or on social media and spending their dopamine, spending their good chemicals that we never get a chance to really talk about what's going on and feel what we have to feel and address what we have to address, right? So I mean, I'm literally watching my daughter playing Roblox right now. She's like right in front of me playing video games, and I can't say anything to her because she had a long day at school in front of a computer. And so, and she's also being mindful not being out there too much because we have to be careful. So I think if the schools can recognize that children have been navigating this insane world, and recognize the importance of putting them first, then I think hopefully things will start to take shape in a positive way. Again, I can't imagine what it's like to be a principal right now. I can't imagine what it's like to be an educator.
Yeah, sitting here thinking about all of the complexity of it, just from the experience of the parents, the experience of the children, the experience of the teachers, the administrators, the school board, the decision makers, and all of the other pieces that come in. We have a question from our audience. What do you suggest parents do across San Diego to advocate for their students' true needs? And I want to add to that too, just in hearing all of you speak, where have you been advocating, and has it been met with silence, with let's work on that? What has been the response in your advocation?
Counseling, mental health, restorative justice practices. Some people that know those things, want to do those things, want to practice those things, and can be there to work with our children around their around their mental health needs. I think that's the biggest thing right now.
And so
Makes
you
sense.
mean that the schools are spending money?
I would say advocate for that.
Okay. Oh, advocate, yeah.
The question was, what would suggest to advocate for? Advocate for counselors and mental health practitioners on campuses, personnel that can do true restorative practices at a campus, not just one person. It does not take one person, and it will crumble as soon as that person leaves. That can have a team that can do true restorative practices and understand trauma and understand our youth and where they are developmentally and how to support them around their social emotional health.
Yeah, and to build out, as you said, to build out sustainable ways that the school can keep it going. And perhaps expand that into the parents too, so that they can learn what those skills are to be practiced within the home and within the community. Thank you, Celia.
Mhm.
Melissa, what do you think?
Yeah, I was gonna add a couple of things that I've been doing with my parents at home. We've been, I feel, because they're obviously going through this transition as well of being at home and, working remotely. I think the time that we spend the most together would be like when we're eating dinner, where we all just talk about our day and be honest with ourselves on how we're really feeling. Just asking me in particular about how I'm doing with remote learning, how I'm doing emotionally has been a very important factor and helps me it gives me reassurance, because I know that if I do go through something that I can go to them. And I also want to bring up that they're also mindful and respectful of my space. Um, During remote learning, like they give me the space to do my homework, and they're not as pressuring on me to have good grades because they understand that it's hard. And I also wanted to bring that up because I know that a lot of students still have their parents that are like, you have to, like, grilling them, like, you have to have good grades, you have to do this, be the perfect student. And it's hard. It's an additional pressure that you're putting on your student, and can make things more difficult. So I'm very appreciative of that for my parents, that they give me the space to do what I need to do.
Jorge, yeah.
Just to go back to the question of Joe was asking to answer. I mean, if it was me, distributing funds to schools, I think I would definitely. I mean, I'm being biased about this, but I would definitely start this 2021 with schools focusing more on fatherhood inclusion. That's the one thing I haven't seen in any district, any schools ever in the history of ever. I mean, my mom was involved with like 6 to 6 and all these after school programs. She was involved with Primetime. I believe she's one of those like volunteers, and I remember not seeing ever fathers. I never saw anything like that. Growing up. So I would love to push that. I would love to push that idea. And I'm not saying it because I work for a fatherhood program. I'm saying this because we need to get dads more somehow involved with what's happening with our children at school. But the schools have to be more welcoming too as well. They have to have these resources for dads. So when I say dads, I really also mean parents, right? Like more parenting resources. Going back to mental health, going back to counseling, supportive counseling, cognitive behavioral therapy, all these other things that I think children during this time need more than ever.
I I agree with you. It's so important. I worked at the Elementary Institute of Science in Southeast for about 8 years, and I was one of the only Black males a lot of the kids ever got to see. And also, I was a children's pastor. Just kids, like a lot of kids do not have their dad's presence. So to see me, and then when I volunteer with my kids' school, it is a lot of the moms that are there. So I definitely agree that is so important to have that male presence. And I would also say, I don't know why my heart, I'm a parent and educator, all that stuff. My mom is a teacher as well. So my heart during this pandemic has really been on the teachers, the parents, of course, but the teachers as well. So for that question, I would definitely love to see investment in the teachers' mental health. My own kids' teachers, they've had their own kids run around as they're trying to teach. Some teachers have been pregnant during this time and had to deal with that. Teachers have had loss in their own family. And my mom, example, she lost her husband and her dad during this pandemic and still was teaching. in her 60s trying to figure out all these apps and how to teach, like,
Mm.
and she's having to go back in person to teach on next week, and she's nervous. And I'm really big on teacher advocacy to make sure that they're okay, because it's a lot. And I've seen, like I said, my mom perspective from my kids' school, and it's the teachers are asked to do a lot, and they're doing amazing. I mean, like you said, Jorge, I couldn't imagine having to be in the classroom right now with kids. It's a lot. And so I'm a pastor at the Rock, and my kids go to O'Farrell, but I've seen the behind the scenes of opening up a private school, and that was different. And they've been open since August, but it's been stressful for those teachers as well to just jump right back in. And so I would suggest some investment in teachers' mental health and them navigating being back in person as well.
And I think it's, in addition to that, important to recognize that the pandemic isn't over.
It's not.
It's not going to stop Sunday night and not still exist. Like, COVID is still very much out there. People are still catching it, and the complexity of that. So we may very well find ourselves coming back into 100% distance learning again. So I echo what you're talking about, Brandon, too, in that professional development, the mental health, the social emotional health for teachers, and support in the distance learning as well. The one question, and I guess I would direct this to you, Cydia, just being in as a vice principal, with the separation in the classroom, trying to keep, the 6 feet apart. I'm assuming that's something that they're still planning on doing, unless they're going to lessen that. But what are they doing with regard to the classroom size and space and activities, recess, lunch? How are they planning on still trying to keep the safety of not just the students, but also the school staff and teachers in mind?
Well, so last notice we got is 5 feet. It's from person to person. So today we walked around. We've been rearranging classrooms. We walked around with a stick and a ruler or a measuring tape, and we're measuring things or pushing things around, and we have the dividers, air purifiers in every room, making sure staff are 6 feet away. I am checking in onto my staff like nonstop. Like I have like an online like referral system, but also for like mental health, social emotional for students. But I also added the staff component, and I'm giving a staff, like, if you need a tap out, let me know. I will come cover your classroom. Go take a break. If you're about to lose your mind, like, I got you. Like we're just trying to take care of everyone as much as we can, both, yes, physically and mentally and emotionally as much as possible. I'm just trying to listen. I'm just trying to be there for folks, just hear them, understand what's going on, be thought partners, be a space for folks to cry, let anything out, but we're making sure that our numbers are reasonable as much as we possibly can in our classrooms, and we have options and choices, and get kids out. Like, or one of our teachers like, I wish we could teach outside. I'm like, why can't you? I love learning outside. Let's teach outside. Like, let's do this. This is our chance to like do all the fun, crazy stuff that we always felt like we never really could. Like, let's have fun teaching again. Can you bring your webcam so you're teaching the kids at home too? So if you can, awesome. So I know a lot of the technical stuff, the paperwork is probably going to fall in the back end, but right now I just need to make sure my teachers and my students and my families feel good and comfortable. And yes, Jorge, we will be having parent workshops, and I'll probably bring you in to do some fatherhood stuff. So we're going to get that going next week to make sure that we're engaging our families.
Thanks, Cydia.
Thank you. I look forward to connecting with you. And if I can add something to what Cydia was sharing as well, going back to, welcoming, programs into the school. If I can say anything as loud as possible, is let them in. The Office of Family Assistance, I recently discovered, has these past couple of months have begun and have already distributed the fundings that they've already given, and they've already found the people that they want to work with, all the nonprofits, including ours, that was just funded, and all other programs that were also funded. This means that there's money out there. There's a lot of money out there that schools could easily utilize and kind of siphon into your schools, whether it's mental health, whether it's professional development for the children, whether it's professional development for the parents, whether it's maybe new technology, new tech that they might use. Maybe there's a program or a nonprofit that provides maybe free laptops for some of the kids that might choose to stay hybrid, right? So I think it sounds to me like, just based on the research and the conversations and the meetings I've had these past couple of months, that the money is just sitting there and we're just waiting to kind of start using it. I know a handful of nonprofits now that are eager. They're waiting. They're just waiting to be allowed to meet in person. They're waiting. I mean, some of these like Zoom meetings that I've been in, there when in these original meetings in person, there was only like maybe 10 to 12 people, and you're seeing like 40 people going in. They're like, "Hey, how can I help? Hey, what's going on over there in this school? Hey, do you need any mental health programs over there?" And everyone starts to support each other. So I feel like this is the time to let the program, let the money in. The schools don't have to do this by themselves. I mean, schools are already underfunded. School teachers are already underfunded as it is. So it all trickles down. Trickle down economy. So it's important to find out where all this use us, use the nonprofits, use Say San Diego, use Rise, use all these people that are passionate. I mean, I'm not burnt out yet. This is what I hear about the nonprofit world, that you get really burnt out really quick the more you put in, the more you pour, the more effort, the more time you make. But I mean, at least with my team and other people's teams that I've met, people want to care.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it speaks to the notion of it takes a village, right? To really let everyone in that sense. I'm curious too, to go back to my question around the numbers in the classroom too. How is that going to be dealt with? Is that something that the schools have brought up? And is that a concern now that we are a little bit further? I mean, kids don't have the vaccine yet, but teachers and some parents and some staff do. So what does that look like in the classroom? And is that, for you as parents, is that something that will cause you concern? Because let's be real, do kids wear their masks all the time? What are your
Are you
thoughts?
asking what the number limit is?
Yeah, is there
So it
is there
depends on the classroom size. And so some of our classrooms, a lot of it, well, most of them are about 18. And that's making sure, we're doing the whole distance thing, and like we're getting in there, making, doing all of the magic of moving furniture and getting a bunch of stuff out and making sure we have plenty of room, but also utilizing like extra space, like, again, utilizing outdoors, finding other classrooms, make sure, having our co-teachers take a group, just utilizing different spaces and being creative with spaces that we haven't been before. So that's what we're working with. But also we have middle school. Now the little ones, I don't know how y'all are going to do that with the mask situation.
Brandon, earlier before we started, can you share your story about the practice session for your child?
Yeah, I've loved it. So they had a couple Wednesdays and they did a mask Monday, wear your mask Monday. And it was probably a good 6 hours. They did, of course, once they break for lunch on Zoom, they say you can take it off, but the teacher really did and she did checks on Zoom if it was tight around your nose and over your mouth. And like I said, my son is 6 years old, so he was just like, no, I don't want to. So, but it was really good practice. And I did sit down on a couple of those and see the first graders and see how they did. Most of them, it was just all up here to the side, down here. It was cute, but the teachers really were making their best effort to get them in that rhythm. And the weird thing is, my 2-year-old, half of her life, she's basically worn a mask going outside. So when we go out the house, like, she actually asked for hers now. So that's really weird for me now. She's like, my mask, my mask. So our 10 and our 6-year-old, they're still not comfortable with it, but it's interesting how our 2-year-old is like programmed to know, like, we got to wear a mask, we're going out. So But yeah, it's definitely still challenging for them. So thankfully, like I said, our kids' school, they did say that they will have the kids wear masks all day, but we just know that our boys won't be able to handle that yet.
Melissa, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I think a concern of mine, just not wanting to go back to school and to continue with remote learning, is that sure, like in school, we can practice social distancing, mask wearing, hand washing, hand sanitizer. But I think especially for my age range, it's very difficult to keep teenagers at home, hanging out with friends or keeping on a mask on. And it'd be hard to ensure that they would practice that outside of the classroom. That's just a worry of mine. Another one would be vaccinations. I think Pfizer barely opened up for 12 to and above, but a lot of families are not eligible yet for the vaccine. So say I go to school and I don't have my vaccine, but I bring it home, it would just be a stressor for me, something that I wouldn't want to put on top of an already stressful year.
It brings up a truly, truly valuable point too, that it's not just the concern about vaccines for the kids, but also for the parents and other family members who don't yet have access.
If I could add to what Melissa was sharing, because that's one of the concerns that I've had as well, right, is bringing it back home. And there's one thing that I learned about this virus that really scared me, and I had a friend of mine that lives in Utah, and he's a teacher as well, and he told me that he's gonna go back to school. You know, he's very religious, and he was one of those people who was like, I'm gonna be fine. You know, I mean, you know, everything's okay. You know, I wasn't sure if he thinks it was maybe a lie or not. I don't think that was my business. I think what he told me really struck me. He said he discovered that some people have a disability that that enables the virus to attack their lungs faster, and some and some of the human population has it. It's like I forgot the gene, I forgot what it's called, but the virus can attack your body, and then you'll have like chills and fever like my brother did, my mom did. But there's some people that get it really heavily on their lungs, and if there's already other stuff going on in their bodies like diabetes or lupus or fibromyalgia, all the other things that teachers suffer from, all right, these they it brings their immune system down. They're even more susceptible to this. And there's children with like low immune systems, children that have you know have diseases and have problems and have you know things going on in their bodies that makes this virus even more welcoming. So those are the ones that I'm thinking about, right? Those are the ones that I'm like, okay, what do we do with this community? How do we engage with this community without without putting them in the back burner, without sweeping them under the rug? Because they die. That's the truth. You know, my friend's father passed away like this, and and people like this, someone's friend's father could be a teacher as well. And then it's one of those things we won't realize until it's too late. It's like, oh, you know, we're over here marching and marching because we want our kids to go back and blah 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 blah. You know, I can't stand it, blah blah blah. But I'm like, dude, when people start dying and you know them, it changes you, it affects you, and you start recognizing that, um you're right, you know. And so that's the biggest fear that I have is that people don't understand that some bodies just don't, they can't take the virus. Some bodies can't even take the vaccinations. So it's so delicate. The situation is so, it's like a fluid, delicate thing that is alive, and we have to figure out what to do with it on a daily basis, where it's going to go, where it's going to be, right? But I think it comes down to one very important thing is we all have to be really accountable of each other at a deep level. We also have to communicate with each other and discuss what's been going on. And this is the perfect time. I mean, my dad, who I don't even talk to as much as I should, he said it. He said, you know what, this is the time, Jorge, where you're going to be tested as a father, you're being tested as a son, you're being tested as someone in your community, you know. So we're being tested, you know. This is it's not on purpose, it was something that happened. But I mean, I grew up during this time, you know. I had to grow up big time, you know. I had to really step up as a father to really take on what was going on. Okay, I had to change my career for my children. I had to go through this process because I needed to grow up, and I realized that there's this is it's more than just a virus. It's negligence. It's not being able to communicate with the people that you care about. It's not being able to communicate with people who disagree with you. It's a whole other it's a Pandora's box that was opened because of this virus. I mean, I am scared about the virus, but I'm more scared about how people are gonna react once they start interacting again. Again, going back to the microcosm example of the kids at the park that couldn't even know how to play. You think people are when they start going to festivals, when they start going, and I love festivals, I love dancing, but and going to events and conferences and when the drinking starts and the fun starts, you think people are not gonna know how to like they're gonna hurt each other. I predict that. I predict that people are not gonna remember what it's like to be human again, to connect again like that, and they're gonna be very like, not everyone's gonna be on the same page for at least a year or two, so minimum. So
Yeah.
that's why I really want to heavily emphasize this like mental health part, because that's going to be like that safety net that's going to help us all kind of come back and ground us again.
Thank you, Jorge. Any final thoughts as we end our session today? What's the takeaway for our audience, if they're parents or students, as like Melissa?
I just like to take time to encourage the parents, any parents watching us now or watching it later, that you're doing better than you think. As Jorge said, that we've been through a lot, and I really want to encourage the parents to keep going, to keep, as Melissa said, and City, you guys all said it, but I really want to drive that home too, that your child's mental health, your time with your kid is more important than an A, B, C, or D, or an F grade. And that's something I really got convicted on during this whole time of, I'm never going to get this time back with my kids. I am busy. I've been busy my whole life. But as you said, Jorge, this made me grow up and say, man, I got 3 young kids in my house with my wife, and I better enjoy this time, because it was stressful. It's been stressful. But then as I look back, things are ramping back up, and I'm like, man, I'm going to miss getting to have lunch with my kids. I've like never done that in my working career, but I got to be at home sometimes, have lunch with them. Like you said, Melissa, dinner, breakfast. And I want to encourage the parents to cherish this time, even though it hasn't been easy, but to remember this time, as you said, Jorge, growth in your family. Hopefully it's been a loving environment that we've created, and to not forget this moving forward once things pick up, but to keep that family feel and that love in your home.
Well said, Brandon.
Yeah, and I want to add on to that, but like to students, if there's any students out there listening or parents, it's just to not beat yourself up. You, like Brandon was saying, you've done the best that you can, and everyone's situation right now is so unique to them during these unprecedented times. To just be easy on yourself and understand that you've done the best that you could, and to just keep going. The school year is almost over. Don't give up, and to just keep your head up. And the most important thing right now is, like we've all been mentioning, is mental health, but also just health in general and staying safe. So keep your head up.
Melissa, if I can share something with you, because I know you're surrounded by all these adults, talking serious stuff, and I want to value you, and I want to validate that that you're very wise. You're very wise, and it's important for you to continue to think about this as critically as possible. I heard you say the word lonely, and I heard a lot of us talking about how lonely this situation has been feeling. And one thing that I've learned, and I'm trying to teach my kids on a daily basis, is to know the difference between solitude and loneliness. Loneliness is a very kind of negative thing. It can seem negative, but solitude is when we teach ourselves to learn while we're alone, to be okay with that, right? And I think right now with this thing going on, whether you're at school, whether you're at home, teach your parents that as well. Teach them the difference between solitude and loneliness. Solitude is something, it's a time for them to maybe read a new book, or for a time for them to maybe learn a new trait, or maybe learn another language, stuff like that. Keep their minds busy. This it could be applied for children, it could be applied for adults as well.
Thanks, Jorge.
Thank you, Jorge. That means a lot. Thank you.
Video?
Just remember the humanity. Remember we're all in this together. Just love each other and go easy on each other, and just patience.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all so very much for sharing your experience with me, with our participants, with our audience today. I also want to be able to thank our coalition partners who share in helping us get our stories out there into the community. Youth Will, Logan Heights CDC, BayPAC, the San Diego Foundation, and the Jacob Center for Neighborhood Innovation. We also have some upcoming events that I encourage all of you to participate in. Rise San Diego provides monthly free training for small business owners and nonprofits. So do please go to our website, register. You see that on our screen. We also have the next Rise Now will be on Thursday, April 29th, and the topic will be on immigration, specifically pertaining to the immigrant children who are now housed at the San Diego Convention Center. I am really, truly looking forward to that one. And also, if you can just stay a little bit longer and give us your feedback, let us know how we're doing on our webinars. Take a moment and fill out our poll question. Our audience's information matters to us, and we want to make sure that we're providing you the best that we can. So take a moment to complete that. Thank you again, Jorge, Brandon, Melissa, and Cydia, for being here with us, taking a step away from your families and sharing your stories as we continue on this pandemic journey together. And you are all absolutely right in recognizing our humanity, recognizing our solitude, and just being a part of the community is really a big foundation for all of us. Thanks so much, everyone. Bye for now.
So that was good. Thank you for